Hello. For the past few weeks, my partner, Howard Bell, and I, Andy Min, have been researching the effectiveness of 3D printing on the reconstruction of degrading coral reefs. We will be presenting our findings to you in this presentation. Thousands of animals are losing their natural habitats as human activity destroys their ecosystem. With vast amounts of overfishing, extraneous amount of toxins, chemicals being dumped into the ocean by corporations, climate change, and the negligence of human beings, these factors harm coral reefs and their aquatic inhabitants daily. This obstruction of marine habitats causes problems both for humans living on land and for the creatures living deep in the sea. As the water continues to warm and coral bleaching occurs, many sea creatures are losing their homes. The disappearance of these creatures is detrimental to the ecosystem and could lead to a collapse of the food chain. To preserve these environments, the use of modern technology like the 3D printer will be effective in rebuilding these environments. The main focus of our research is to determine if the use of 3D printing in this oceanic environment to replace or reconstruct coral reefs will help the marine wildlife population. As of 2020, the U.S. Endangered Species Act lists 22 coral species as threatened and another 3 species as endangered. According to the EPA and numerous other sources, mass bleaching of coral reefs has increased with the increasing rate of climate change. And from 2014 through 2017, there was another mass bleaching. Over 75% of coral reefs suffered from heat stress. By 2015 through 2016, human activity had destroyed over 50% of the world's coral reef population. And with the severity of climate change gradually increasing, experts project those numbers to rise at an absurd rate. Artificial reefs could be a viable substitute to replace the destroyed coral reefs. 3D printing has been a recent invention and innovation, and its uses are now starting to diversify. 3D printing would provide exact replicas of natural corals in hopes to rebuild the dwindling number of coral reefs in the ocean, which are an integral part of oceanic habitats and in maintaining certain marine populations. 3D printing would help attract marine life as well as aid in recreating a healthy ecosystem in which fish and other types of oceanic species can prevail. As we continue to research, we wondered, would 3D printing be an effective remedy to reconstruct and rebuild damaged marine habitats? And we've come to the conclusion that we believe that 3D printing will be an effective solution in the aid and in the reconstruction of destroyed coral reefs and other marine habitats. Our first source in our research gives us a broad overview and reference of coral reefs. The article covers the natural composition of reefs and the various places there are notable coral reefs. This article covers the formation and arrangement of reefs and the proper environment reefs need to grow. The author also talks about how coral reefs benefit the environment and their importance to marine animals as a habitat. This article also importantly mentions the different factors that are damaging and destroying coral reefs around the world. This information is essential to the project because it gives us information that allows us to understand better the basic biology of coral reefs and how they impact the environment. This next article is a brief explanation of the technology behind 3D printing and its usages in various fields and industries. This source also discusses the history of 3D printing dating back to 1993 and covers the evolution of the technology over the past 30 years. It also discusses 3D bioprinting, where experts use 3D printing to create organic matter such as tissues and organs. This information is vital because it helps us better understand 3D printing so we can better evaluate if using this technology will be useful in reconstructing reefs. And this scholarly source from Kaiser focuses on explaining the actual technology behind 3D printing and how these technologies can restore the barrier reef. The author talks about the materials utilized to construct artificial reefs. The source talks about their initial study of the artificial reefs, where they found the fish seemed to accept the new habitat as a suitable place to lay their eggs. This information would be useful to our project because it is related to the technology and materials that create these artificial reefs, and also gives us an example where the fish seem to accept the human-made habitats.
Our next source was Hope in Coral Bleaching Crisis. This article focuses on the work of a particular group of scientists using 3D printing to rebuild coral reefs. The source talks about how experts explicitly construct the coral reefs to suit the animals that are going to live in them to maximize potential living space. This information is essential to the project because it is vital to understand how scientists construct the reefs to understand if they will be useful in sustaining the marine population. The next article was Evaluation of the Effectiveness of 3D Printed Corals. This peer-reviewed study covers a real-world application of 3D printing to restore fish populations where human pollution has decimated coral reefs. This research will be imperative to our project because it allows us to look at data relating to our thesis in a natural environment. In the experiment, the scientists compared the effectiveness of an artificially produced reef to that of a natural coral reef. They found that the amount of fish occupying each reef was similar, which is essential to answer our research questions. What was discovered in our scientific data and article shows that 3D printed corals positively impacted the reconstruction of the environment by sustaining the same amount of sea life as a natural reef. In the source that we researched, the scientists evaluated the effectiveness of the artificial reefs by comparing the number of fish per coral per minute in a natural reef to the amount of fish per coral per minute in an artificial reef. In the first week of the experiment, the artificial reef had more fish than the natural reef. And for the rest of the experiment, the amount of fish in the artificial reef stayed within one fish of the natural reef. Also, the researchers mentioned that the three-dimensional printed artificial corals represent an alternative tool that is easy to handle and relatively inexpensive, and in our case, approximately $45 per coral. In the future, for our research to be more accurate and precise, we should find more peer-reviewed essays to compare with our findings. 3D printing is a relatively new and mostly unrefined technology. Soon there will be many more studies on the effectiveness of artificial habitats in the marine environment. This research will be imperative to the future of many creatures' aquatic habitats. We concluded that the use of 3D printing does in fact effectively mimic coral structures that reefs can experience. As seen in the article, the evaluation of the effectiveness of 3D printed corals to attract coral reef fish at Tamarindo Reef, Culebra, Puerto Rico, yellowtail snappers, parrotfish, and several other essential marine species required to maintaining a healthy aquatic habitat have used both natural and 3D printed corals at the same rate. However, the 3D printed corals also have not shown the ability to host coral larvae and provide a safe area to grow natural coral reefs further, which is integral in coral repopulation. The use of artificial reefs comes into question because scientists have not studied 3D printed corals in the long term, involving pollution as these 3D printed corals are made of plastic. Despite its flaws, the ability of the artificial coral reefs in fish recruitment and its ability as a sustainable habitat for marine life displays promise after further development in the future. It establishes 3D printing as a bright promise method in the reconstruction of the global coral reef population.